Hey, I'm Alfio, and this is Brave Tales, where we dive into mental health, gut health, and the brave journey to healing through real stories and honest conversations. Today's guest is Nash Mackey, a life coach, mindset expert, and former combat medic who turned profound personal loss into a mission of transformation. From witnessing an overdose at 17 to losing 2 siblings to suicide. Nash's story is raw, real, and deeply inspiring. In this episode, we talk about building unshakable resilience, rewiring your nervous system, and why transformation isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. Buckle up, this one goes deep. Nash, I'm so excited for you to be on the Brave Tales podcast. You've been in my corner for about 2 years. And I've witnessed firsthand the transformation and the help and the guidance you have provided me, or that you provide. And to begin with, I want to ask you, like, your journey has involved some profound challenges, right? From military service to personal loss. Mm-hmm. What was a defining moment in your life that forced you to completely rethink how you showed up to the world?
Beautiful question, brother. Well, it's wonderful to be here with you, and I appreciate the great questions and the thought you put into these questions, and I know you're here to dive in, so let's go. So a moment that really stands out when you ask that question, Alfio, is a moment in time when I was training for the role that I did as a combat medic in the military. Now, I want to emphasize, I never got deployed. I never went overseas or anything, but I trained at 17 years old as a combat medic for the military. I did all that training. And part of that training was I had to get real work experience. So the local hospital was where I found myself getting that real world experience in the emergency room. And there was a really significant moment when I was working as part of a team, assisting the doctors and nurses and the other medical staff there to administer treatment to a young lady who had overdosed. And it was really eye-opening for me, brother, because I was there as a young individual, really committed to making something of life. And I was still in college, doing the army on the side as well, working as diligently as I could, really wanting to make something of life. And I saw her there at a point where the best decision she could make was to attempt to end her life. And we were there fighting for a heartbeat. We were there really working as a team to bring her back. And it was a very eye-opening moment for me. And I really became acutely aware that there are people out there who are struggling. There are people out there who are going through one of life's dark nights, and they don't see light at the end of the tunnel. And that stuck with me, that memory. And I went down, that path, and I continued to work in hospitals for a period of time, and then I started a construction business, but I could never shake that memory. It got tattooed on my brain, as I like to say. And I often think about that young lady because that memory, no matter what I did, I couldn't shake it. And I really got to a point where I sat with myself and I asked myself the question one day, thanks to a mentor who prompted me to, what do I want to dedicate my life to? And what I decided I wanted to dedicate my life to was being there to support people activate their potential and live an incredible life. And despite whatever hardship they face, ultimately find the light at the end of the tunnel, move through the darkness and actually come onto the other side. Because a part of me, I don't know why, I believed that was possible. And then life gave me plenty of opportunities where I found myself in the darkness. And I can say with my hand on my heart, that the light is there if you keep moving forward.
It's amazing. And I love that because you've taken a tragedy and something that impacted you so profoundly. And I think it's fair to say, I mean, it's quite traumatic to go through that at that age. So I think it's incredible. And there's an underlining message here, right? That we can turn these tragedies or these these traumatic experiences into opportunities.
Absolutely. And perspective, well, it was William James who said humans can alter their lives by altering their perceptions. And, perceptions, perspectives, they're kind of closely tied. And that's exactly it. So trauma is an interesting word, and trauma, something being traumatic is, it can be. Many things can be traumatic. But I truly believe that our perspective will ultimately determine how traumatic things are, if that makes sense.
It does. That's powerful. And that's basically tying in the idea of like searching internally as opposed to, relying on external factors to, I guess, lift yourself and, get out of a situation where you feel it's a struggle. Whereas if you go internally, then you're more empowered, right?
You are more empowered because we cannot control the outside world at all. But we can get behind the controls when it comes to all the, it's said that there's three things we can control: our thoughts, our decisions, and our actions. And maybe instead of thoughts, like I would actually say tie it back into perspectives. Our perspectives, our decisions and actions. Yeah, because it's hard to control thoughts, like honestly. I was just using the quote, but I would add to the quote: perceptions, decisions and actions, we can always control them.
Yeah.
Thoughts, I'll just make that distinction for anyone who might be interested. Our thoughts they're electrical impulses. They pop up, they come up, they can be random, they can be crazy, they can be wacky, they can be great. Don't take them too seriously. Learn to notice your thoughts and then essentially feed the ones that are productive and discard the ones that are unproductive.
Now, before I jump
Easier said than done, by the way.
So with that thought, can you maybe share 3 ways or 3 tools that people can take away and use when they need to, change perspective?
3 tools to change perspective. It's a great question. Well, I would share that, first of all, questions are how you ultimately direct your mind. So asking yourself better questions is how you're going to start shifting your perspectives. And everyone listening, it's important to understand there's always a question bouncing around in our minds. There's always a question. And depending on what that question is ultimately determining our experience of life. So for example, you're having an experience and the question might be, why does this always happen to me? Another question might be like, when's this going to end? Another question might be like, why do I have to deal with this? Another question might be like, what's the gift here? What's the opportunity here? Very often the question's negative because we as humans have a negativity bias. We have overall, we're more negative than positive by default. And we could slice that a little thinner even and say, it's not our highest nature, because if you look at kids, children tend to be more positive than negative. But we tend to learn, I believe, this quite pessimistic behavior overall. And I'm talking generally here, not everyone. But worth noting that very often that question that's bouncing around in our head is a negative question. And if you catch that little sucker, you can flip it, because your mind works for you rather. So that's really important to understand. So ask a better question. That's number 1. Number 2, in order to change perspective and actually really start shifting gears mentally, you want to start shifting gears with your breath, because a racing mind and crazy perspectives or racing thoughts most often come from erratic breathing. And a lot of people don't realize that. And they're trying to do the mindset work, but they're not doing the deeper nervous system work. So take control of your breath, anchor yourself and ground yourself using your breath. Learn how to breathe more effectively, because calm breathing correlates to a calm mind. So that's going to help with perspective shift. And my other favorite, or one of my favorite perspective tools that I play with a lot, is just simply acknowledging the fact, and it's zooming out, essentially. Zooming out from your situation, not getting too bogged down in it. And ideally, people develop practices so they're detaching from, let's say, getting too bogged down in issues. This is not to say we dismiss issues, we sweep them under the rug or anything like that, but we just detach a little bit, step back. And we can do that through having a meditative practice throughout the day, through hitting the gym a bit, through a nature walk, through a chat with our partner, through time with our kids. Like just detach. Learn to detach, but not to dismiss. You detach, you pull back, you recalibrate, and then you go in again. And one of my favorite ways to do that is, well, I've got many practices I do, but I do a moment-to-moment practice, which is just jokingly saying to myself, man, I have it so easy. I have it so easy. Like, there's someone who's really struggling out in the world. I'm certainly not. My challenges are a privilege. And that's me zooming out, connecting with the fact that someone else is probably doing it tougher, and sort of having a playful banter with myself, and again, detaching from my issues being the biggest thing in the world. Because when you make your issues the biggest thing in the world, that's exactly what they become. But when you like playfully downplay them, you essentially make yourself bigger than the issue. You're now behind the controls a little bit more. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So they're three prompts that I would offer anyone who's looking to adjust their perspectives.
Yeah, and obviously, it's something that, because like every habit takes, good habits. What was the timing? I think it takes 3 months to change habits. Is that right?
They say on average 66 days to 100 something days.
Okay. Yeah. So with that notion, then I guess the other element to these tools is to have patience and persistence, like practice and repetition, and therefore you're kind of rewiring your mind, essentially. I remember you using that term, like rewiring the mind. Yeah, is that right?
Sure. Well, you're rewiring your brain ultimately, but the mind is adjusting. Yeah. So the mind is obviously the overviewer. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the brain itself and the nervous system are rewiring, literally. Yeah. Reconfiguring itself to take on or adjust to whatever you are minding. Because you think about the word mind, it means, like, if I say I'm going to mind the kids, I'm going to mind my kids while my wife goes out, I'm observing, I'm taking care of them. They're in my awareness. Yeah. And so to mind something is to essentially put focus on it, to be aware of it. And we are all mindful of something. The question is what? Yeah. And it does take time to rewire the brain and the nervous system, and activate new things in the body and condition our body in new ways. But the mind can expand very quickly, very quickly. And while, yes, it does take time to properly install habits, in the same breath, I would say, let that not be an excuse to anyone who's listening, because some people are like, oh, it takes time, there's no point. Your life can change in an instant, truly. Well, I think we've all had those moments where we've made a decision and we've experienced repercussions of that, for better or worse. And using that wording, the better or worse, when I got down on my knee and asked my wife to marry me, well, she was my fiance, or my girlfriend at the time, I guess, then fiance, wasn't it? That was a moment decision I made, and it changed things. Like, it set things in motion. Or that moment you tell that special person you love them, and it's like becomes more serious. Or that moment that maybe you run that green light, or run that red light, or that amber light, and then something happens, an incident. Like, it's a split moment decision. So our life can change in a split moment.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. People are like, oh, I'm not a runner. I've never been a runner. It would take an age for me to become a runner. And they've got this whole story around it. But then they're walking down the street one day, and then a freaking dog jumps out at them and starts chasing them. They become a runner real fast. So the reason I'm saying that is because sometimes we can actually put prompts in our life that get us to move quicker.
Yeah.
And get more out of ourselves in a far more effective way. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, we can demand greatness from ourselves when we know how to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Which then goes back to the importance of having purpose in life, a direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, look, Nash, you've been very open about the tragic loss of your siblings. You've opened up about that. And for someone listening who feels like, their pain is just way too heavy to endure, what helped you turn your grief into purpose?
Thank you, brother. Great question. And I'll share some perspectives around this that might be a little bit, well, that might be new and possibly challenging for certain people listening. I come from a big family, and so I guess I was connected to the reality that as much as I love my family and I wanted everyone to be there forever, I knew that there would come a time where we would experience the passing of certain individuals in our family. And there was a part of me that wanted to deny that and just hope and wish that everyone would be around forever. But then practically, again, because of my experience, I know that human life is very fragile. And there have been many situations where different dynamics at play, where we experience the passing of, I've experienced the passing of a nephew, very young, that I've never really spoken about. Like, so we kind of started experiencing different things. Like, it just, again, life happens. Obviously, relatives passing, and like that's life. And as much as we try and run from it, ultimately you need to just embrace the fact that it is part of life. So I guess I realized that I had to be acutely prepared for that kind of reality. And again, while a part of me never wanted to experience it, I knew I'd be foolish not to prepare myself for it. So a huge portion of the work I was doing for many years was actually learning to navigate the passing of a loved one. And that wasn't just because I knew I'd experienced it in my family, and I kind of was, again, in many different dynamics, from elderly people to younger people. It was also because I needed to understand a lot of the stuff I'd seen in the hospital. So I'd seen the passing of so many people over. And I kind of had to understand. I had to kind of gain perspective so I could compartmentalize everything I was seeing. So I guess I was going into kind of deeper philosophical concepts and spiritual concepts to really understand the human journey and the human experience. And so I'm sharing all that because that really and truly helped me. I'm not saying it was easy by any means, but having perspective and having certain understanding that I had gained over the years were a gift beyond words. And I didn't run. I see a lot of people who run a phrase like, oh, if this person ever passed, it would wreck me. And I've heard people use that kind of phrasing, and I saw that as very vulnerable. And I never wanted to be someone who was so reliant on someone else in my life that I would fall apart if they were no longer there. And so these are just some of the frames I had in place. Now, when my siblings passed, and they passed very close, first my elder brother and then my younger sister only months later, my elder brother was under the influence of alcohol. He was going through a very tough time, and he was supported by all of us as a family as much as we possibly could. And it's easy when someone passes who's close to you to be like, oh, what could I have done better? And certainly I asked myself those questions. But ultimately, no one can do more for us than we're willing to do for ourselves. And my older brother was going through a hard time, and there were certain choices he made that were to his detriment. And my younger sister was like under a lot of care as well for her mental state. And unfortunately, the passing of my brother was sort of an outlet, or kind of, let's say, a prompt for her to end her life as well, because both of them in their lives, just to clarify for anyone listening. So how do you process all that? Well, there's many different ways to do it, but let me say that, first of all, being connected to the reality that everything in life is temporary. That's really quite healthy, and I want to emphasize that. And there's a level of, when you really embrace, and it's actually a Buddhist, and it goes through other practices as well beyond, like, people will point out that it's Christian as well, but I learned it first when I was hearing from some individuals who practice Buddhism. They talk about impermanence a lot in the Buddhist tradition. Everything's impermanent. They really are in that. And they learn not to be attached. They learn to appreciate and really respect and love and honor things as they are, but not hold on to things too tightly. And those perspectives really helped me. I was in tune with the impermanence of things, and because of that, when my siblings passed, I was able to then honor them and say, okay, how am I going to use this to not make this about me, but rather to honor my brother and sister and live on their behalf and do what I can to ensure that maybe other people don't need to feel like there is no hope. Because I thought I was doing everything I could. And when my siblings passed, I was like, wow, I get to lift my game. I get to live my game. And that was a gift. In it was, they woke me up on a new level. They woke me up, and more or less it was a call to action for me. And so I chose to do certain things on their behalf to promote messages around mental health on a higher level. And I realized there was nothing else I could do. Well, actually, there was another thing I could do, and that was go into a spiral, because that's easy to do when you go through a challenge, like spiral down and get like, oh, this is so bad and shouldn't be this way, and judging it. But I was like, I cannot change it. What can I do? I can use this as a catalyst to impact on a greater level.
Yeah.
And that's what I chose to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful. And thank you so much for sharing all that. Like, at the end of the day, it's still such a difficult thing to go through, However, I think the lesson here, what I take, is that how important it is to take the time in the present, in the present, and then continuously to. It's almost like spiritual muscle building, or soul building, maybe, probably a better term. So then when that time does come, because it's inevitable, you can't avoid it.
Yes.
That's right.
So it's just another reason how important it is to work on ourselves. It's an ongoing thing. It's a journey. It's not like a 3-month course and then it's ongoing. It doesn't stop. And then on that note, a lot of people will probably think, well, I do all the courses, I do all the work, and I read all these books, these great books, but they still feel they're stuck, right? They still feel that there's a blockage. So what could you share that is going under the surface that keeps them stuck?
Well, there's a couple of key things that I believe or have come to understand keep us stuck, and this isn't just my opinion, it's what I've observed having now worked with over 1,000 individuals around the world through the work I do. And having been trained with and under so many mentors who accumulatively have supported millions of people. So, there's fundamentals. So what keeps us stuck more than anything is our idea of ourselves, who we believe we are and what we believe we're worth. So that identity we have is number one. We have a fixed identity, and that identity isn't adjusting. It isn't actually supporting us move into the experience that we would ultimately love to have. The identity is a governor. It's limiting us. It's holding us back. Some people call it a self-concept. And so that's number one. Number two, I would say, is judging whatever's coming up for you. So your experience. So people judge what they have, and because they judge it and resist it, they just keep getting more of it. Because as it says, what you resist will persist. So because they keep judging it and resisting it, like, this is bad, this is wrong, shouldn't be like this, X, Y, Z, there's a judgment, it keeps coming up. What I found is the way forward, is through saying, okay, this is what it is. I fully accept this current experience as my path for now, not for always, it's just the doorway. And until I move through this doorway in an energy of non-resistance, non-judgment, it is what it is. And I'm grateful for this doorway because it's life. I don't have to be experiencing any part of this experience, I don't even have to be breathing right now. We don't even have to be here, but we are for some reason. And until we can step through that door, step through our experience without any resistance, like truly, then I think we're just going to keep getting the same experience again and again. I genuinely believe that. And so that's transformation for me, because it's been said that transformation is constantly happening. Transformation is all around us. Transformation is the constant. Our bodies are transforming right now as we speak. We're transforming into a new version of ourselves. Nature's transforming constantly. The transformation is a constant. And that's actually a really nice frame of mind to have. We just need to allow transformation to happen. But it's when we resist whatever's here and now, be that the position we're in financially, be it the position we're in our health, be it the position we're in our relationships, or any other dimension of life, we pretty much experience more of it. It just seems to be the way it is. I can't quite explain how that works.
Yeah.
But I truly do believe that we are here to live in those higher states of appreciation, for the gift of getting to experience any of this, the highs and the lows. And until we can meet any experience with pure appreciation and say, okay, this is my path, I'm going to walk it. And you're convicted in that without judgment. You just see it as your path. You're almost neutral. You're like, this is what it is. I cannot change it. This is my path. And until you walk your path like that, you're just going to keep getting the same thing again and again. So I really find those two things in particular are phenomenal for moving through an experience if you've been stuck. Upgrading your idea of yourself, your self-concept, and also non-resistance living.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much power in that. And I can certainly relate to that. And, I'm not saying that I've worked it all out, but my take on that is, instead of, swimming against the tide or the current, ride the wave. Because every experience is gonna create, this very helpful callus in our life. It's every experience that we spoke about this before the recording. That every experience, however high or low it is, it's a lesson. It's educational. It can be a calling. As we mentioned before.
Yeah, brother, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I would just reiterate what I said a little bit earlier, which is honestly, and I say this with so much compassion because I get, at least through my own experience, how challenging the human experience can be. So I don't say this lightly, but I do want to reiterate that it's all a privilege to experience a single conscious moment where we are here and we're like, wow, I'm here on this earth. Like, if you connect with the fact that that is a freaking privilege, you're pretty wealthy. Like you won, as it's been said, you won the ultimate jackpot just being here.
Yeah.
And that doesn't dismiss the challenges. The challenges are real. We feel them and we're meant to feel them. But we don't have to live in them. We get to move through them and beyond them.
Just looking back at like the nervous system, right? Like your work, you deeply, integrates, nervous system regulation and, emotional processing. How can someone begin to, regulate their state when, for example, when anxiety or, pressure kicks in? It's all of a sudden it's hit them out of nowhere.
Beautiful. Well, I would bring it back to what I said earlier about your breath. Your breath is your remote control to your nervous system. And you couple that with what I mentioned earlier as well, asking a better question, then you've got a pretty solid grasp on your system. And I would also then tie in what we've spoken about as far as resisting. If you resist having or being somewhat anxious or any other emotion, that's going to continue. So really, a huge portion of the work I do is supporting people learn to actually sit in the experience exactly as it is right now without trying to change it. Like, just sit in it and watch what happens. Transformation is the automatic. It's the constant. So if you sit in your experience, like actually stop trying to force change. So if you experience anxiety, for example, to make it tangible, don't try and change your anxiety. Oh, and by the way, it's not your anxiety. You're just having an anxious experience. But you sit in it and you use your breath not to try and escape the anxious experience, which a lot of people do, by the way. Like there's a huge, I'd say the vast majority of people will kind of learn about, oh, you can use your breathing to change the anxious experience. But we don't necessarily want to change it until we've moved through it. We've essentially processed it. Because if you just breathe out of anxiousness, then you might have missed out on the gold. Like honestly, what would happen if you allowed yourself to feel a little more anxious? Because what happens is most people feel a little anxious. We all experience anxiety. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. they experience anxiety and they're like, oh, no, then they judge the anxiousness and they try and run it, and it's like tipping petrol on a fire. Versus if you experience anxiousness and you learn to recognize that coming up and you're like, damn, palms are getting sweaty, heart's racing, mind's going a million miles an hour, and you're like, okay, I'm good, I'm safe. And that's really nice to say to yourself, I'm good, I'm safe, I'm okay. And then you come back to your breath, and your breath isn't to change gears straight away. Sometimes that's necessary, but your breath is actually to fully allow that experience to run its course, because you've got to realize every emotion is a chemical. If you try and change gears before that chemical is burned up, that's just going to get stored. And this can happen in seconds, by the way. So experience anxiety and you come back to your breath, you breathe fully, you breathe optimally, you allow a little bit of space for that anxiousness, then it tends to change gears. That transformation kicks in by itself, and you digest it in a healthy way. Just like a perfect example is kids. You've got your own beautiful children there, Alfio. So your little ones come to you, they've fallen over, they've hurt themselves, and they're like, Mum, Dad, I've hurt myself in this. They're crying, they're having a little moment. You hug them and you give them presents for like a few seconds. They have a big teary on your shoulder, and then bang, they're back to playing with their toys. You've experienced that?
I have.
Yeah. That's because they're complete in the process. They just need a little bit of nurturing. But if they came to you and they were like in pain, or they were, having a big moment, and you were like, stop that now, then stuff's going to get real. They're going to get amplified. They're going to feel, or they might bottle it in, and then it'll come back later in some form, or it just escalates. But if you just take those few moments to soothe them, like game over, man. Like that's where stuff gets processed, stuff gets regulated, and then you move through it. So your breath ultimately is how you allow that experience fully. Your breath is to come back into your body and actually allow the physical sensations of any emotion to happen without it overrunning you. Because it tends to overrun us when, again, we shut it down or try and force it or judge it or resist it. Breathing circulates it through our body in a really healthy way.
Yeah.
That takes time to learn how to do, but it's completely possible.
Yeah. It's almost like what Bruce Lee used to say about, be like water, adapt and just be amongst it, as opposed to pushing it away and trying to, like you said, trying to resist.
100%, brother. That's it. It's all energy. It's all energy just traveling around your body. It's just signals and chemicals and all this stuff. It's use that, move that through your body and allow it. It's when we, again, judge it, we restrict it, and we bottle it down, or we let it cause us to react, that we tend not to produce great results. So I believe whatever we experience in any moment is exactly what we need to experience in any moment. And when you can learn to honestly meet each moment without judgment, you actually are like, okay, this is my experience for now. I'm going to allow it. But I also know I'm not going to live here. I'm not going to be here forever. I just need to allow this without judgment, meet myself. And then bit by bit, you guide yourself, as you said, to vision. You've got a higher vision for it. And that's really important, because otherwise it's just going to feel like you're constantly chasing your tail if you don't have a vision or a purpose for your life.
Yeah.
You need a reason to allow these things so we can get to the other side. If we just keep aiming to get to the other side, and that ties back what I said about earlier, going through the darkness to get to the light. Going through the darkness, this is happening on the micro every single day. This process of going through the darkness to get to the light, or going through the challenge, we might say, to get through to the greater times.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And, this is the motivation, the core motivation for me to do this podcast is through my challenges. That's what's driving it,
Sure.
The experiences that I've had. And obviously, that applies to anyone, any experience, that you can turn that into an opportunity but being grounded. And, it's, again, it is easier said than done, but I think with practice, and I think the key thing is self-awareness, isn't it? Like if we had to kind of just put it into one term, self-awareness. So just being aware of what's happening. Because I catch myself a lot of times. Like even though the 2 years of amazing work that you've guided me through and you've supported me and been in my corner, I do lapse.
Oh, what, you lapse? You lapse? You're the only human I've met who lapses, Alfie. You should feel very bad. Shake your brace.
I disappointed you. I let you down. Oh.
Yeah, you lapsed.
I know.
Didn't realize I was talking to a lapser.
I know. Oh man.
No, that's it, bro. Yeah. But here you are.
I'm aware. I actually catch myself. I go, could have dealt with that better. But before, when I didn't put in the time and do my morning rituals, my self-awareness was probably non-existent. Okay, it was non-existent. So those times when I do go off track, then I at least go, well, probably could have handled that a bit differently.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's it, mate. And if you've got that much awareness, you can do a lot. And your awareness will continue to expand, and it has the capacity to continue to expand as much as you really allow it to. And it's something that is worth taking the time to expand. There's actually a book. I was just speaking to a client about it, and one of my clients, he runs a company, and he's done a lot of work on himself. And I suggested this book. It's called Awareness, funnily enough, by Anthony DeMillo. And he was a Jesuit priest and also a psychiatrist. So a really interesting mix. And it's a cool book. And it's all about that, like just being aware. And as you said, being aware that you might have lapsed. And you actually pass through a moment, and then you're like, whoa, hang on a minute. I just realized what I've done. Oh, my Lord, I knew so much better. But then also meeting that with a thing of an energy of non-resistance. It's like, okay, I see it, got it, thank you. That's it for now. If I judge that, make it bad, have the label of I shouldn't have done that, I should have done this, like all that, you're just going to add fuel to the fire. If you go through a moment and you've acted in a particular way and you didn't catch yourself in that moment, then I believe that was your path for now. But then you got to look at that and say, okay, do I want that to continue? Do I want to keep doing that? Is that actually great for me? Is it great for other people? If not, then I get to reorientate myself without judgment, without like making it bad or beating yourself up for it. Just be like, okay, no, it doesn't feel very inspiring for me to continue doing that. That's actually a pretty sucky deal. I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna choose something better. And I'm grateful that I had to go through that lesson, that lapse maybe 50 times, in order to get the lesson. But I'm getting it now, and that's okay. Yeah, better late than never.
For sure. And I think like a lot of us just naturally like to just kick ourselves down, right? Like, while we'll have the awareness, and I've done this before where I'm like kicking myself like too far. Like it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And then I'm overthinking it. But we tend to do that as humans. We tend to just be so hard on ourselves, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's what I'm trying to get at. It doesn't have to be that way. It's okay to stuff up. It's okay to there's so many great stories of, the Gospels and the followers of Christ when they were basically the pinnacle. Like they were the chosen ones to follow Christ, but they were the most like broken.
Yeah.
We had one that was denying the doubter, the one who abandoned him, like et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lessons there that it's okay to stuff up, and I'm just talking from the heart. I'm not talking from you're the expert, but I'm talking from my experience that It's totally fine to stuff up. The key thing for me is to have that awareness and go, all right, dust myself off, be aware, and just do better next time.
100%, brother. And we all have a conscience, and I've said it before that I think it's almost easy at times to question if some people have a conscience when you see some of the things happening in the world. But I truly believe each of us has a conscience, and we know when we can do better. Like, our conscience lets us know. And I think a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but some people have tuned out of their conscience and detached from that so much that they become very questionable types of individuals. But for most of us, like, we know when it's time to pivot. We know when something isn't ideal. But for a lot of us, well, I'd say for most people, it can be challenging to make changes because we have a nervous system that once it's wired in a particular way, it kind of likes that. It's like, okay, there we go, we're done. You've set me, you've practiced being a certain way for so long. I'm going to stick with this now. And we're anchored in a certain way of behaving or thinking or feeling even. And it can feel really, really challenging to change. But we need to also tune into that conscience and say, okay, yeah, I know within myself that the way I might be behaving isn't me at my best. And so I'm gonna do the work and push through that resistance and the discomfort of rewiring my nervous system, my thinking, in order to start producing a new result, because I don't want to keep living in this self-betrayal. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's a really crappy deal. That's a crappy way to spend your life. And that's where, because as we said, we're gonna experience the passing of loved ones. We're going to experience the challenges of life. That's inevitable, and it's really important to be in tune once again with that impermanence. But if we're not living by our conscience and allowing our conscience to guide us and tuning into what we could say is the higher self and being guided by that, then when one of those challenges happen, which again are inevitable, you can really be thrown, and it can be your unraveling. Because you've not listened to your conscience moment to moment. You've just compounded all this baggage, this self-betrayal that's going on. And so taking these moments to tune in, to be aware, as you were saying before, and to ask yourself, okay, within yourself, once again, tuning into your conscience, what do you know you could be doing better? And then giving yourself permission to walk the path, pushing through that resistance, to rewire your thinking, to rewire your way of being in life in order to start producing a new result. Well, that then turns into a purpose. That then becomes purpose. You start to feel purposeful when you start making meaningful changes. And I believe a purpose of life is not just to go and chase a big shiny vision and goals. Like, the purpose of life is to become and to live as the most empowered version of ourselves. And that requires, sitting in those moments where we're doing a bit of a self-examination and we're looking under the hood a bit and saying, okay, what do I know when I tune into my conscience is subpar? And what could I do better? And then giving yourself permission to upgrade that and upgrade that. And it's not just for self-gain. If it's just for self-gain, you just won't sustain. There goes the rhyme. But it's got to be for contribution. It's got to be for a purpose bigger than yourself. It has to be. Because otherwise, it's going to feel empty.
One last question, my friend, and that is, what does it mean for you to be brave?
Beautiful question. Well, bravery and courage for me tie in, like they're intertwined. And after my siblings ended their life, I hinted that I went and did some certain things for mental health, and one of those things was set a Guinness World Record. So I completed a 24-hour Guinness record, completing the most push-ups with T rotation in 24 hours, 6,181. And I had a message that I was putting out there, which was to check in with yourself. This is for everyone. Check in with yourself. To be courageous if you're struggling, to reach out and make a change. And so for me, I would say being brave, again, ties into courage, and that looks different for everyone. But for me personally, it is doing what's best when I know it's best to do it. That's bravery. And doing what's best might be speaking up if I'm struggling in some capacity, reaching out to a friend or someone, a mentor. That might be brave, might be getting over my own funk when I've been in if I've had a bit of a charged moment with someone who's close to me, like just getting over it and just like, okay, it's not worth sitting in any longer. Bravery's then taking the higher path and letting that go and just moving on and again, doing what's best when I know it's best to do it. That's bravery for me on a personal level, but again, it looks different for everyone. But hopefully that gives someone something to chew on.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. That's so powerful. Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome, brother.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to, share your story, your experiences, and your incredible knowledge. And can't thank you enough for everything you're doing. And just finally, how can people? I'll add obviously some links, on the actual video, but where can people find you?
Thank you,
about what you're doing.
Thank you, man. I greatly appreciate that. NashMackey.com, NashMackey.com, or at Coach Nash Mackey or Coach Nash Mackey on Instagram. I think it's Coach_Nash, NASH_MACKEY. I'm available in one of those two places. I've been a little quieter on social media recently, but it's going to continue to ramp up. Got some very exciting things on the horizon. So yes, expect to see a lot more of me on there.
Can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. And as always, super appreciative. Thank you so much, Nashi. Nashi, thank you so much.
That's actually one of my nicknames, Nashi Pair.
Nashi
Pair, bro. Like that was. I was never going to get away with a name like Nash without being called Nash.
It was meant to be, right? So I'm going to stand grounded in what I just said, right?
Yeah, man, own it. That was deliberate, wasn't it? Yeah, but it's good. It's good we're ending in humor. I love that.
Of course. Thanks again, mate.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, mate.
That was Nash Mackey, and what an incredible journey. Remember, resilience isn't about pushing harder. It's about expanding your awareness and staying true to what matters most. Until next time, be brave.